on Huey Reinhardt's work on 18% of spending.
I think he's referring to the work of a Princeton professor, Huey Reinhardt, who argues that 90% of the difference between what Europeans spend on healthcare and Americans spend on healthcare is related to higher income levels in the United States.
Yes, any other questions? Yes.
Yeah,
I'll wait for the microphone. So.
I haven't read the act, I'm sorry to say I haven't had time to read the act.
Well, if there's a rainy weekend, I'll give you
So since I have an expert here, is this regulation of our health care only tied to the payment of it? For example, if I choose to go to a doctor and not invoke my state-mandated insurance coverage, but just tell the doctor, I'll pay you cash for treating me. You won't have to go through any of the insurances or Medicare or Medicaid or anything else. Is that prohibited in any way in this act?
No, I haven't found any prohibition of that nature. Be aware, though, that it's a different circumstance when you're on Medicare. Right. But for people who are under age 65, I haven't found any restrictions. Have you?
No, but I want to tell you a little story. When I was in Congress many years ago, not too senior, very junior, I was a runner. I still run. I ran 3.5 miles last night, so I'm real proud of continuing to do that. And I had pulled something in my lower leg near the ankle and in the calf. And I went to see my orthopedic surgeon friend, and he said, well, you either have a partial tear, Bill, of your Achilles tendon, or you've torn a muscle. I don't know which. And but I can't take a risk. If you are going to do all right with this, you can't run maybe for 6 months or maybe a year till we see if this is going to be a problem, because I don't know if it's going to. But there is a new procedure at that time, a new procedure. Well, not covered by my insurance, called an MRI. And we could have that test done if you're willing to pay for it. It cost me over $1,000, and I did have it paid for. And he looked at it and he said, wow, you know, this is a little tiny severed muscle. It was kind of fun to look at. It was about this smaller than the size of a pencil lead. But it's severed. Go back and go running. Well, wait a week maybe and go back and go running. I'm in the airport in Colorado about a month later, and it was bad weather, Betsy, and I was waiting on the plane, and just coincidentally next to me, and it struck up a conversation, was the executive director of the Canadian Medical Society. And this was my only medical story. So I told him the story, and he said, Congressman, under Canadian healthcare law, you could never have had that MRI. Mm-hmm. You could never have paid for it because it wasn't medically necessary. Mm-hmm. And we wouldn't permit it, no matter what. And that's what a lot of us fear. That struck me at the very beginning illustration, a young guy in government, of how I never wanted to go there. And yet that's really the inevitable path I hear a lot of people talking about who are behind this Affordable Care Act. The philosophical drive, some of the political drive is to get to that Canadian, that European, that universal, that system, and ultimately that's the rationing we're talking about. It may be elderly, it may be whatever, but whatever somebody decides isn't necessary, you're not going to get even if you want to. And now that's not in the law. That's not in the Affordable Care Act. But this is sort of viewed by me and a lot of other people as just the first step. They were really excited about getting there. It may take them another 20 years. It may not be affecting you, but what about your grandkids?
And in fact, one of the philosophical drivers, as you mentioned, behind this law, which has been articulated by several of the president's medical advisors, is that America should be moving toward that European style of care where government controls how much care people get, even if they are willing to pay for it themselves. Fortunately, a Canadian High Court recently overturned that national law that prohibited people from paying for their care with American insurance or just out of pocket. But it is a driving force behind this law, not only that you shouldn't be able to pay for care yourself, but also that some people should not be able to get more care than others simply because they're willing to pay for it themselves.
We have time for one more question or comment. Yes.
I'm Jim Antle here. I'm just wondering, what is the source of your confidence that you'll prevail? I mean, you know, obviously there's the merits of the argument, but as we all know, a lot of times it really depends on the composition of the court. So, you know, could you address that?
Well, I think both, Betsy can too if she wishes, but Lee and I can address that, and I'm sure we have slightly different views. I'm not overly confident we're going to prevail. I want to believe it's sort of like it's my basketball team, it's my case, so I'm a little biased. But I just have a hard time, as I told you at the beginning, believe the Anti-Injunction Act argument will kick it off. Number two, I think the individual mandate argument is really compelling to anybody who logically looks at it, and you look at the court composition and you say, why would somebody go the other way? Now, I've listened to the experts, and Lee can go through this because he's closer to some of them than I are. The people who are former solicitors generals, the ones who, some of them on the other side of this, professors of law and blah, blah, blah. And they will go along and they'll say a reason why Scalia, a reason why Roberts might vote the other way. But at the end of the day, I think we should get a 5-4 decision. We might even do better. We won one Democrat in the 11th Circuit, as you pointed out, Betsy. But Kennedy seems to be the swing judge. Now, I'm not going to go into that analysis. Lee can if he wants. But most of the target of all of this effort on both sides has been assuming Kennedy is key. And there's a lot of reason for us to believe that we are, based on his past decisions on this and on the Medicaid issue, very much appealing to what he's written in the past and his viewpoint. So I'm cautiously optimistic. On severability, I think that we'll get some of it kicked out. I'd like to think we'll kick it all out. Based on past precedent, it probably is more difficult to predict that with any certainty that we'll get the whole thing kicked out. And then on Medicaid, you know, no guarantees there. But as Lee said, if they're ever going to do it, this is the time to do it. And we've got a great argument under the Dole case. What do you think, Lee?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, obviously you should never count your justices before they vote. And I mean, I've followed a lot of the debate about, well, which justice, and will Justice Scalia, largely because of his concurrence in Raich, which I think the other side is misinterpreting. Is he going to vote to uphold the law? And of course, Justice Kennedy. I think, frankly, if you look at the Supreme Court's precedent, if you look at the number of times that they have said that there is no general federal police power, if you look at their Commerce Clause cases, every single one of them discusses the type of activity that Congress is regulating. It's not Congress can regulate people, it's Congress can regulate this type of activity, sometimes even if it's non-commercial, but it's always, that is always there. The government has never yet come up with a decent theory about why, except trying to suggest that thinking is sufficient activity, that you know, when I decide not to do something or I fail to do something, that too is activity. I mean, that's a pretty thin read. But with respect to Justice Kennedy, if you look at his decisions, and of course he has disappointed conservatives on a number of occasions, but one thing he genuinely believes, one thing he has written about since he got onto the court, and in many ways it defines him as a judge, is the belief in federalism. I think he really believes what he writes, which is to say that the federal system is there for a reason. It is critical to the framers' vision of how we guarantee liberty, and the courts are properly positioned to vindicate that in a proper case. So I think that is really why I'm you know, I hope I'm not overly confident, but I think we will prevail on the mandate. Whether the court will strike down the whole law, they certainly ought to, because I don't think there's a ghost of a chance Congress would have passed the other provisions without the mandate. They can operate, which is to say, yeah, they're effective regulations of the insurance industry, but they don't achieve what Congress wanted to achieve. And so I think Judge Vinson below was absolutely correct in striking down the whole law. We'll see what the court does with that.
Well, certainly their appeal to Scalia would indicate that maybe that's an admission that they've lost Kennedy.
Perhaps.
You know, who knows? Well, we'll know maybe next week, maybe not, depending on how the justices talk at the hearings. But we will know for certain, you believe, one way or another in June, unless they kick the can down the road under this Anti-Injunction Act argument.
And by the way, Tom, as we dismiss here, I think the discussion this morning has pointed out a bottom line thing we all ought to take away from this. That is, when this court decides, whatever it decides, no matter what it decides, it is the beginning, not the end of the debate over what happens in our healthcare system. It is not the end of this at all. It'd be a historic moment for us constitutionally and from a federalism standpoint and individual liberty standpoint. But it is not the end of the debate on health care.
Well, I appreciate it. You can see how we hit the gold mine with this panel with Betsy McCoy, Bill McCullum, and Lee Casey. These three individuals have done more than virtually anyone else to really fend off two administrations on socialized medicine. So we appreciate their leadership on this. So thank you very much.
Great to see you again. Lee, good luck.
And thank you all for participating as well. Thank you.
I still remember running a TV ad in the primary, which didn't run half much.